Yeah, so when we look now, we see um, the Exodus, and moving fast. We see the Exodus of Jacob and his family that were about not more than 100, inclusive of servants and all that, and livestock. And because of who Joseph, his favored son, who is other boys, again had thrown him in a pit for him to die. Yes? And went back and told their father, Jacob, that Daddy Jacob, or Daddy Israel, whatever they wanted to call him. Joseph has died, but Joseph never did. And Joseph was redeemed by the Good Samaritan. And the Good Samaritan at that time was not an Hebrew. The Good Samaritan would have to be a Gentile. A Good Samaritan. Look into that. Because the entire Jewish family was just the amount of people within that household of Jacob. And so what happened? They went down to Egypt. They went down to Egypt with not more than 100 people, and they did 400 years in Egypt. 400 years the Jews stayed in Egypt. Clearly, we have seen and basically you would have to see that sort of nomadic behavior. So they were nomads, and so they went down in Egypt, and they were enslaved down in Egypt for 400 years. And when after 400 years they had increased in numbers and become a nation within a nation, to the extent that the Egyptian, the Pharaoh, got fearful of them, realizing that these people were about to take away the land from the Egyptian, and so they enslaved them and tried to diminish their numbers. Anyway, the sufferation that they were under was too much for them. And the same God, okay, the same God who promised Abraham to build a nation out of him, it is the same God who created destruction for them, put them in slavery. The same God. And then the same God took them out of slavery. And remember this, there was so much this and so much that. And the person that was used to remove them from out of Egypt was an Egyptian. Because Moses was an Egyptian, but he was an Egyptian Jew. But he didn't know. And so, every earthly thing Moses was taught by the Egyptians, because he was of the eyes in the Egyptian family. He was Pharaoh's grandson, because Pharaoh's daughter adopted him. And so he became a prince. Moses was a prince in Egypt. And when he found out that he was a Jew and not an Egyptian, he turned against them. But not before he had learned all these tricks in Egypt. He was an occultist. He was an occultist. Because, and later on you can look and you will see. And so Moses was the man that led them out of Egypt. And God, and the minute they got out of Egypt, the same people that are the chosen people of God, the first thing they did was to start worshiping idols. And God was vexed with them. And so he said, okay, you guys, I do so much things for you, and this is how you repay me. I'm going to punish you. And he had them in the desert, in the wilderness, for more than 40 years, if my memory serves me right. And so Moses now was to take them to the promised land. And see it here now. Because when Moses reached up on the mountaintop to have a conversation with God, right? On the mountaintop. And I'm pretty much fast forwarding it because everybody's supposed to know the story. But the highlights that I want to take from this is this. Right. And God said to Moses, you see that land over there? As far as your eyes can see, I, God, your God, will give you that land. But because of you see what you did to me, you deceive me by worshiping false God. And this was the whole thinking of God at that time. I am going to give you that piece of land. But your punishment will be that you will have to fight for that piece of land. Because there are people that are living on that land. You must drive them off as your punishment and take that land. That land is yours. I, God, giving it to you. And God claimed that he took the land away from those boisterous people. I think they were the Canaanites, the Amalekites, and the this kite and the that kite. However, so the Jews had to obey. And the question I really want to ask, and I understand why God gave that piece of land to the Jews, because that in itself was a punishment, was their punishment, that they would have to drive off those people off that land and to take it. Now, the question I really want to ask, and I understand what the Israelites did to God. Yeah, they disrespected God, they dissed God by worshiping false God after God took them out of bondage. They disrespected him. And so their punishment for the disrespect was that they would have to fight off those people off the land. But the question I really want to ask, what did those people do to God? What was their punishment? So God is punishing the Israelites by punishing another set of people who did not have anything to do with what the Israelites did to God. But God clearly placed a curse upon those people for no apparent reason other than he wanted to what you call it now? He want to honor the covenant that he made with Abraham. God, the God of love, the God of peace, the God of holiness, the God that cannot sin, because we see that same God turned his back on his own begotten Son, Jesus Christ, when he was on the cross, because he could not even so much as to look upon the sins that his Son took on, the sins of the world, to give mankind a chance. And then you're coming to tell me now that that God that gave that land to the Jews is the real God? Clearly, it could not be. Because we see right there that is evil 2.0. And we see the evil now that is playing out. And I ask you this question, because I don't want to get too long. I ask you this question, and boy, it really tears me apart to know that God of holiness could be stepped from his holiness to be a God of unholiness, and then later down to reclaim holiness when his own Son was on the cross. I don't understand that. God could have dismantled the whole thing there, but he chose not to fight. The same God who told the Israelites that they would have to fight, the same God coming now and choose not to fight. From the beginning, he choose not to fight with Lucifer. And he chose also not to take back anything that he gave to Lucifer or either man. And it's the same God that chooses not to fight for his Son, because when his Son was on the cross being crucified, he could have saved him. But the same God who was not a fighter, and we see two God right there. It's two God we see. So who is those two God? We see the God of heaven and earth that made heaven and earth, and also the God that made Lucifer and man. And then we see the next God, which is Lucifer. Because remember, the only power that was not given to Lucifer by God was the power to blow the breath of life. And all of those powers that God gave to Lucifer, he did not retrieve them. He was such a great and compassionate God, a God who was not retracted. And so he left everything, to the extent that this God becomes his greatest competitor. Even in the world today, we see it. And I ask the question, if Jesus Christ is the Son of God and was sent by God to God's people, the Jews, which were God's chosen people, then you mean to tell me that they could not have recognized that this is the Son of God? The Jews were the ones who killed Christ. They killed God. They killed Christ. Because they were the one who shouted out to Pilate, kill him, kill him. Claim that he is the King of the Jews. And so they lied. And they got Jesus Christ crucified. Up until this day, the Jews have not recognized Jesus Christ, not even as a prophet, much less the Messiah, the Savior of the world. The man who came on earth and blew back the breath of life into people, heal the sick, raise the dead. Up until now, the Jews have not recognized Jesus, not even as a prophet. They still see him as a nobody. Check it out. So clearly, I am saying, if I send my son, if I wasn't seeing my son, my brother for 50 odd years since we were young people, and I have my son now, and I want my son to go to where my brother is and say, tell my brother that you are my son, and I want you, and I want him to help you. Would my brother who know that my son, because the minute he sees my son, he would have recognized that that is his nephew? But did the Jews recognize Jesus as God's son? Clearly not. And why did they not recognize that he was the Son of God? Why? If they were chosen by the same God that is the Father of Jesus Christ, why did they not recognize? And the answer is clear. The answer is clear. Jesus Christ and the Father of Jesus Christ wasn't their God. Because their God is clearly a God of war, a God of vengeance. Yeah, and we see what is happening now. Where is the love that God showed? And you know something? We see Christians today, rather than listen to the teaching of Jesus Christ, who said, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And who said, the greatest of them all, and he gave them hope and charity and love. And he said, but the greatest of these is love. And he said, if you have love, love encompasses everything. Family of the world, if Jesus should come back on earth today, where would Jesus be in this time of war? Would he be in Gaza? Or would he be in Israel? Ask yourself the question. And all of you so-called Christians out there who are talking about this is God's plan and prophecy must fulfill, I say to you, yes, prophecy must fulfill. But whose prophecy? Is it the prophecy of the devil, or is it the prophecy of God? Because the devil can prophesy to you, Because remember, God gave him the power to do whatever he wanted to do. God didn't take back no power from him. So this is clearly what it is. But there are other things, and there are other caveats and things that God put in to protect mankind during this time. And I assure you that the devil will never prevail. And what I see is going on in the world today has nothing to do with God, but everything to do with Lucifer, the devil. And I say to you that I'm not going to tell anybody what religion they must choose to worship, because God himself give you your free will to do whatever you want to do as man, even the will to worship the devil. God don't stop you, but God opens. The door is open. Knock, and you can come in, but you have to come in clean. Because the same Jesus told you that I will be standing at that door. And if you're not clean, you cannot come in. Because God of holiness can't mix up with sin. So, where are we going? Where are we going? If you are breathing the breath of life, it doesn't matter what race you are, what creed you are, what religion you practice, you're God. You're belonging to God. The soul that you have is God's soul that God gave you and has not chosen to take it back from you. The air that you breathe is the air that God given to you and has not taken it back from you. Nothing that God gave to man, God has taken back from man. This is who God is. You understand me? And I say to you, all you religious zealots or whatever you want to call it out there, no religion, none, is not constituted by God the Almighty, but constituted by the next God. So understand that. If there was a religion to be practiced by God, it could only be one religion. And that religion, you would need no rule nor regulation. It would regulate itself. And Jesus told you about it. And what it is? Love. Jesus said, love your neighbor as you love yourself before you can love God. So until you can look at a Palestinian, until you can look at a Jewish person and love them the way how you love yourself, then my brothers and my sisters, you are not doing the will of God. You are doing the will of the devil, Satan. Satan on our worship. I want to know Satan, I want to God. And a God the Almighty. Because the God the Almighty is a God of love. And God say, you can't love me if you can't love your neighbor where you can see over there, so. I'm here talking in my own language now. If you can't love your neighbor, how you're going to love me that you can't see? That's what God say, you know. And so world family, make we move ourselves and go back in the right direction. The direction where the God the Almighty want for us. And if we choose it, we only have to do one thing, my brother and sisters. Love. Just love your neighbor the same way you love yourself. And wish for other people the same thing you wish for yourself. And do to other people the same thing that you'd want people to do to you. What is happening now in the Middle East is a devil situation. Is the devil metastasizing itself? Because this is the only way that the devil can operate. Because wherever the devil goes, he finds that there is a roadblock for him. And this is why you find out that religion came into being. Because anything that creates division is not of God. Love don't create division. Religion creates division. And this is what we see happening in the world today. Division created by religion, created by the devil. So, I am going to say this to you. For all of you out there who are Christians, for all of you out there who are Jews, for all of you out there who are Muslims and other religions, recognize this. The only religion that, if it was a religion, would be a religion from God. And it is a religion called love. The religion of love. And if we all, as human beings in the world today, could love our brothers and our sisters the way we love ourselves, then we would realize that there would be no reason for all these religions that is creating divisions. And you look at Christianity today. Christianity is the more divisive religion on the planet, because you have about 1 million divisions of Christianity. Could that be of God? Could that even be of Jesus Christ, the Son of God, who gave up his life to save mankind? Why would we have so much divisions within Christ? Family, understand on yourself. I am getting too, may I go too far now. This is 29 minutes. So, I'm going to wrap up. But look into yourself and let us change the world. Let us use love and change the world. Bombs cannot change the world. Bombs will never ever be able to change the hearts of man. But love, if we love our neighbor the way we love ourselves, stop the hypocrisy. Stop the hypocrisy. Look into yourself and be honest. Christians, you are the most dishonest religion of all religion. You're so dishonest. And why? You use the name of the Son of God, Jesus Christ, to practice such dishonesty, when the only thing you need to do as Christians is to love your neighbor as you love yourself. And your neighbor love you the way how they love themselves. What a beautiful world that would be. Look into that and change on the dirty ways. And know that the whole of them are devil workers.